This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Otley.
Welcome to History for Cocktail Parties. My name is Thornton Kennedy.
And I'm James Otley.
How are we doing today, James?
Doing great now that we've got some of our technical problems worked out. Well, we got a great cocktail you're going to tell us about.
Took us a minute and a half to get up and running.
That's right.
Today, we're going to talk about the days leading up to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And we will discuss April 14th. Over the next few episodes, we will get to the events of Ford's Theater. But this will be a multi-episode arc. We're going to do the assassination of Abraham Lincoln in the first few episodes, heartbreak, and then we're going to go into the manhunt for John Wilkes Booth.
Sounds like a great plan.
And this was an interesting time in our country's history. The Civil War had just come to a close, which motivates John Wilkes Booth to act, right?
That's exactly right.
Richmond fell, the capital of the Confederacy.
That's right.
So that April 3rd.
Ah,
April 9th.
Appomattox.
Yep. Lee surrenders to Grant. And one of my favorite stories from that time is that William Seward had been injured in a carriage accident.
Mhm.
Abraham Lincoln is visiting Seward at home. And Stanton, the Secretary of War, comes into the room to let both men know that Lee has surrendered and the bloodiest conflict in the history of the United States has come to a close. Abraham Lincoln, who was considered a dour man, was in good humor. These were some of the highest points of his presidency.
Right.
Of course, he had just won a second term.
Yes.
November 8th, 1864, inaugurated March, I think, 11th. And who is at his inauguration?
John Wilkes Booth, amazingly.
And John Wilkes Booth writes in his diary that he had an opportunity to assassinate Lincoln, I believe.
I think that's right. And he did lunch. I'll get into more detail about the specifics of that. But one thing that I think is completely just amazing and incredible is there is a picture out there.
Right. I've seen that.
Yeah. From the inauguration where John Wilkes Booth is just several feet, maybe 10 or 12, 15 feet away from him on an upper level. Just, I mean, could have done something right there.
And that's what we love about our podcast is we talk about those moments in history that could have broken either way.
Right.
And the story leading up to the assassination of Lincoln is filled with those moments.
But before we get too in depth here, so we
can
talk
about our signature cocktail.
That and one of our partners.
Let's start with the signature cocktail.
All right, let's do it.
The signature cocktail today is called a Booth Slip.
Which is so perfect. I mean, there's some innuendo there because he slipped off the balcony trying to get to the stage.
It would have been better called a Booth Spur caught in flag.
Ah, yes, it would.
But it is
well done.
It's rye whiskey, it's vermouth, and some other things. We're actually going to put a video up of us making one. So if you really want to know what's in it, you can watch it there. We'll try to behave ourselves. Brown liquor and a podcast.
Indeed.
Not
a good combination.
But as you said, before we get started, I do want to say a few words about our partners Play. History is full of lessons learned. And one of the big ones is that those who don't take action get run over by those who do. Play is a full-service ad agency that helps brands find their spark or reignite it. Their team of creative, quote, players, end quote, turns bold ideas into action with smart strategy, design, and digital know-how, helping new businesses launch strong and established ones move forward with fresh energy. Ready to grow your business? Get a free marketing consultation today at goplaydesign.com. That's goplaydesign.com.
We really appreciate your support.
It is awesome.
Indeed.
Well, James, we've got a lot to get through. It is a dense story. It's just really from April 9th until April 14th, but a lot happens and there are a lot of stories in there.
All of which I'm going to tell you about.
So we're going to start with John Wilkes Booth.
That's right. Right. So Booth, he's 26 years old. He's a legendary actor, but he's also the son of a legendary actor, tragedian Junius Brutus Booth.
He was like the most famous
Yeah.
Shakespearean actor.
He was.
And you're telling me his middle name was Brutus?
It was.
Et tu,
A
Brute?
to Brute. Yeah, he was, as you said, he's finest actor, one of the finest actors of his generation. Booth, you mentioned this was we were talking beforehand, was a really, I mean, he's an actor. He's a good-looking guy. You know, he was
He was
descri
considered the handsomest man in America.
that was the line, right? And along those lines, I heard another quote. He said Booth was described as impossibly vain, preening, emotionally flamboyant, possessed of raw talent
Wow.
and splendid elan, and a star member of this celebrated family. They were described as the Barrymores
Right.
of their day. And as you mentioned before, he was instantly recognizable to thousands of people, both in the North and the South. He was an Adonis with a high forehead and a sweeping black hair. What was another quote, and a person who loved fine clothing,
It's a
delectable.
dapper gentleman.
He was a dapper gentleman, delectable women, and romancer of lost causes.
And can I add that he was named after a radical British politician named John Wilkes,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
was a distant relative, member of British Parliament, who supported the American Revolution.
Oh, no kidding. In addition, to all of this, as you can imagine, Booth is also a white supremacist. I mean, he thinks slavery is the natural order of things. It's kind of even hard to read, but the quote that he had put, I guess, in his diary, he said, "I have been through the whole South and have marked the happiness of master and man."
Ugh,
End quote. I know, just disgusting. As a teenager, Booth was traumatized when a runaway slave or enslaved person killed his schoolmate's father. He thinks at the end
wow,
of
that's crazy. It's a
yeah,
crazy story.
yeah, he thinks at the end of slavery is going to bring about a bloodbath, a similar bloodbath, and he thinks that winning the Civil War will present this. And this is important. I mean, the reality is the Civil War is over. But in Booth's mind, Lee's surrender, it was an error in judgment,
Right,
and there are still 100. Well, one count was 146,000 Confederate soldiers still in the field, from North Carolina to Texas, that have not yet surrendered.
right,
Right, one count has them at 175,000 or more. And so Booth thinks by killing Lincoln, he can keep the Civil War going and, give them a reason to fight, and that will, keep slavery in play.
right,
So it's a hatred of Lincoln, but it's also this messed up scheme in his head that he's gonna get the Civil War going again.
right,
Another thing that's kinda interesting about Booth, apparently he was jealous of his father.
right, right. I
Yeah,
read
did
that.
you yeah?
Yeah,
And did you also read that he was never acknowledged or truly acknowledged by his father, and that he had this paternal loathing for his father, and they maybe even transferred this to the president.
maybe.
Yeah.
And Doris Goodwin Kearns, I'm going to say her
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wrote the Team of Rivals. She posited that it was a rivalry with Edwin. His brother was perhaps more famous than he
He
was,
was, I think, yeah.
and he was jealous of his brother. His brother was a unionist.
Okay.
So there are all kinds of
Yeah,
theories as
yeah,
to what made him such a deranged individual that
yeah.
he would take a
A
man's life.
absolutely, absolutely, and think that slavery was a natural order and just, deranged for many, many reasons.
I would maybe push back on that a little. That was not an unusual thought.
True,
In
at that
Charleston,
time.
South Carolina,
Right,
which really led to the Civil War,
yeah.
that was a popular sentiment.
Well, and probably throughout the South.
Correct.
That's a good point. Deranged as we look at it today, for sure.
Correct.
And so in Booth's diary, this is always like to try and, just for me, make an Atlanta connection. His actions are, he says, are payback for the destruction of southern cities.
Right.
And most historians agree that, and this is unwritten, but that this meant the most recently destroyed city, which was
Atlanta, Georgia,
Atlanta,
and the pathway to the sea.
Indeed, indeed. And so he wrote, he said, "Our cause being almost lost," he said, "something decisive and quote, but this is in quote, great, needed to be done." And, Booth was, he was a coward. He was a coward. He could have enlisted in the, I mean, if he was truly he could have enlisted in
Yeah,
the
he was not he wasn't he didn't fight in the Confederacy.
he did not, and some people say, well, that this assassination of Lincoln, this plot, it was this grand choreography. He was trying to put on
I
a
love the
play
ideas, yeah.
almost, and that joining the Confederacy was too mundane for him. That he was staging this elaborate plot, and one of the things he used a single shot Derringer,
Right, right.
for his plan, and as you know, and we talked about, usually that gun, that single shot little pistol
Little pistol.
was just used for dueling,
Yeah.
you know? So
And you'll get into this, but the, assassination itself is very dramatic.
oh, yes.
This is not like other assassinations where there's a shot fired from a bush and the person runs away.
Right.
This was someone who wanted the attention, wanted the adulation,
Exactly.
wanted this grand gesture,
Right. Right.
very reflexive of someone who is a narcissist.
100%. So it's kinda interesting, a Booth family member has already had one interaction with the Lincoln
Oh, I love
family
this story. This is crazy.
several years earlier. Uh, you mentioned Edwin Booth, his more famous brother. Um, Edwin so, uh his older brother saved the life this is Edwin, saved the
Yes.
life of Lincoln's oldest son, Robert Todd Lincoln,
Crazy.
when he was 22. This was a couple of years earlier. Lincoln had been waiting for a train on a crowded railway platform and was accidentally shoved into the path of an oncoming train. Edwin Booth grabs him by the collar, pulls him back, saves his life, and apparently Robert, Lincoln never mentioned this to his father, but his commanding officer, who was Ulysses S.
I
Grant
know.
at the time,
That's so yeah.
personally wrote a letter of thanks to Edwin Booth.
I
Isn't that
know.
nuts?
And when he is pulled up, he looks up and sees that it's like being pulled off the railroad tracks by George Clooney.
Hmm.
And you look up and see this person, you're like, "Oh my god, that's George Clooney," and then he just
Right.
walks off into the crowd, and Edwin Booth had no idea that he had just saved the president's son
Wow.
until Grant writes in that letter.
No kidding. He
That,
didn't know who it was
he had
until then.
no
And there's another link too. Apparently, Robert Todd Lincoln also is infatuated with, has a crush on Lucy Hale, who is Booth's secret fiance. But
little rivalry there.
indeed, indeed. So, kind of going back to the general backdrop that you started out with. Um, in these times, security for the president was incredibly lax.
That's crazy.
Isn't it nuts? I mean, you'd think, but it just wasn't in their paradigm at that time. At that time, in 1860, 1865 at this point, only one American president had ever been the target
Right,
of assassination, just one, and that was Andrew Jackson.
right.
And he was leaving a funeral at the Capitol building. It was 1835, and this guy that thought he was the king of England, apparently, crazy guy, uh, attacked him, had 2 pistols, both of them misfired,
Mm,
luckily,
wow.
and of all pe and this is kinda interesting, just pulling in other historical names, Davy Crockett, who was a congressman, wrestled the guy to the ground and, pulled him off of Jackson, and then Jackson beat him with his cane, of
Wow.
course, but, I love the Davy Crockett that
Yeah, the Jimmy Crockett
of
piece is incredible.
course. Yeah, I mean, he's the one I think he had the
The
coonskin
coonskin hat.
hat. Yeah, I don't know if he was wearing that at the time or not.
There was an assassination attempt or an alleged assassination attempt in August of 1864,
Okay,
where Abraham Lincoln,
yeah,
as the president of the United States, up for election,
yeah,
is riding a horse by himself from the White
which he
House.
did often, apparently.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
To the soldiers' home, which
right.
was, I guess, about 3 miles from the White
And tell
House.
us what the soldiers' home was. It was
I
his
don't
it was his
it was
resort. It was his kinda second home, place to go away. Well,
I think of it as like Camp David,
okay,
right? It's a place where he can go and
right,
retreat, and there are soldiers there, there are people that can keep him safe,
right,
but he's by himself.
yeah,
He gets to a fork in the road, there's a report in the distance,
yep,
his horse takes off like a shot, he's hanging on for dear life. He gets to the guard, and the guard says, "Where's your hat?" And he says, "My horse got started, it took off." The soldier gets him to his house, settles him in, the soldier grabs another guard, they walk the route,
yeah.
and they find his stovepipe hat in the road
Oh my god.
with a bullet hole
And
through the crown.
holy cow. That
And
gives me chills
you're
just
going to
kinda,
get
huh.
into the Baltimore plot.
Yeah,
Apparently, he did not want anyone to know that that had happened.
yeah, 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 and also gonna get into, like, his private versus public opinions on his personal safety and whether
Right.
yeah, which I think is kinda interesting.
It is fascinating
Uh,
and important and critical to this story.
yeah, well, good point. I mean,
A lot of people told him,
they did.
they were like, you need to stay at home. You need to more
Right,
security.
right.
Anyway, you're going to get into all that.
Yeah, no, and now's the perfect time. He tells his friends and those that are concerned about his safety that, you know, assassination is just and this is a quote, "Assassination is just not part of the American character." He says, I cannot believe that anyone has shot," this might have been before that happened, "or will deliberately shoot at me with the purpose of killing me." Said, "If I am killed, I can die but once, but to live in constant dread is to die over and over again."
It's a great point.
It is, and
It's a great point.
it's a great, well,
You don't
great,
let the terrorists win.
exactly. That was his attitude, you know. However, privately, secretly, he does believe that he may die in office. He's apparently had 80 death threats at this point. He told Harriet Beecher Stowe at one point, he says, "Whichever way the war ends, I have the impression that I shall not last long
Ugh.
after it's over."
And he has that dream a few days
Yeah,
before he dies, and he
tell us about that.
I
Yeah.
can't remember. He told his private secretary that he had this dream that he's walking through the White House and there's a somber mood, and he walks into the East Room
Okay.
and there's a body laying in state in the middle of the room, and he asks a soldier who this is, and the soldier says, "It's the president, sir. He's
Oh,
been assassinated."
oh my God.
And Lincoln tells his secretary he did not think the body was his. He,
Okay.
he thought he was seeing something else.
Yeah.
Clearly, there was a
Yeah.
premonition.
Premonition there for sure. Um, I'd love to tell us where the word assassin came from.
Where did the word
Or should I
assassin
save that for our TikTok video?
come from?
Well, I got a little pushback on this before, but
I can't. Who would push back on you, James? That's
I
the sa-
well, you know, who can say? The word assassin actually comes from the word hash. Well, it's a I guess a Persian word shashin, and that was for it was a group of hitmen who worked for Persian kings between the 8th and 14th centuries, and one of their main jobs was to execute the Knights Templar.
Wow,
Yeah, so
gosh,
that's where assassin comes from.
wow.
Aren't you
Getting
glad?
into some deep, deep underground stuff
Yes,
there.
yes, indeed. Aren't you glad I shared that?
I am so glad.
So,
I know our listeners are as well.
indeed, indeed. So, we talked about, we got Lincoln. Lincoln is not, I mean, he's concerned about security, but he's also, he's also
He's
not.
outwardly he's not
Yes,
concerned. Outwardly, he is brave.
right.
Internally, he has a foreboding.
Exactly,
Interesting.
exactly. And so this is reflected in the security at the White House, which is basically no security.
God, crazy.
I mean, the public has complete access to the White House. There's no fence, there's no gate. The doorman is instructed to allow citizens to roam the first floor of the White House. People can actually, come into the building all day long seeking, political favors. Some people even sleep
Yeah.
on the floors of the White
It's a
House.
people's house, James.
There you go. There you go. And Lincoln says this quote, he says, it would never do for a president to have guards with drawn sabers at his door, as if he were or assuming to be an emperor.
Wow.
Close quote. Lincoln's an impressive guy.
And I know we're gonna get into this, but on that morning after Lee surrenders, he just steps out on the balcony of the house, and there are several thousand people
Yeah.
gathered underneath. Like,
Yeah.
he is
Yeah,
addressing people in a way that today is inconceivable.
it is.
No gates.
No gate. Yeah, complete access. And his views on security and presidential security and the public's access to him was also shaped by the Baltimore plot of
Right.
1861, which I know a little bit about. Well, just a
Embarrassing, I guess.
well a quick primer. A group called the Knights of the Golden Circle, which was a secret pro-slavery organization active in the 1850s and the Civil War, whose goal was to have a slaveholding empire, a circle that went from like a 2,400-mile ring from like South America to Mexico to Central America, the Caribbean, etc. Anyway, they tried to kill the president in 1861 as he was traveling through Baltimore on his way to Washington D.C. Right, and I mean, I don't know all of the details about it. I do know that Pinkerton, the famous detective Pinkerton,
Yeah,
had kind of came up with a plan to protect Lincoln, but I think that what part of it was he traveled in
that was it.
disguise,
That
right?
was it. It was there was this embarrassing cartoons of him, like, dressed as a woman,
Oh, God.
peeking out of the back of the train car like a coward,
Okay, right.
so it was a bad look
Yeah,
for the president.
yeah, exactly, and I think that that stuck, or my research says that that really stuck with him. I mean, he eluded, yeah, he eluded him by wearing, what I read said a cheap disguise. It did not
Yeah.
even go, but it was a woman's
No,
out.
no, I think that was the cartoon. That
Oh,
was
that was the
it was
cartoon
the
of it.
caricature was that
I
he was
got it,
yellow,
I
and
got it.
I have a feeling that was just part of it.
And those same people that probably drew those cartoons, I mean, his opponents, they labeled him, as you said, as a coward, and they didn't believe that there was an actual plot
Right.
to kill him. That was and Lincoln took this is like cheap shots to the heart. He took away from that this powerful message that, public perception is everything. And so he put on this veneer of unshakable courage. After that, as you said, he rode through Washington on a.
I bet that's what informs his bravado.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I mean that was part of it, is like, I'm going to put on this appearance of, don't let the terrorists win. And I'm never going to travel in disguise. I'm never going to have a, body double or whatever. And it was in part because of that plot and the
Yeah,
cartoons and things like that that incredibly, there wasn't even a security detail, or there was certainly no Secret Service, and
yeah.
there weren't any bodyguards for Lincoln until late in 1864. There'd been these death threats, and it was the Metropolitan Police of Washington armed, this group of guys with, pistols, and they were assigned, but there weren't that many of them. Just there were 2 of them that guarded him from 8 to 4, 1 guy from 4 to midnight, and then just 1 guy in the graveyard shift,
Wow.
during the night. And so it was paid by the, Department of the Interior, and catch this, their job description was, quote, "protect" their job description was to, quote, "protect the White House from vandals." Not
Right,
necessarily
right,
protect the
right. It was
president.
not the president. It
Right.
was the people's house. Don't allow people to come in, and that's crazy.
Exactly. But, I'm sure that if you needed protection from vandals today, or from burglars, or any other casualty, I bet you, Thornton Kennedy, would know how to call.
I would definitely call Sterling Seacrest Pritchard,
That's exactly right.
one of the Southeast's largest privately held insurance brokers, and quite possibly the only agency brave enough to tackle everything from construction mishaps to healthcare misadventures, logistics disasters, real estate whoopsies, and even ransom notes from hackers who apparently have never heard of two-factor authentication. When it comes to your home, your business, and all the weirdness life can throw your way, SSP has you covered, usually before you even realize you need it. For a friendly guide through, wait, that can actually happen? To, do I need a lawyer? Call 678 424 6503 or visit sspins.com. That's sspins.com. And thank you, Starling Seacrest Richard, for your support.
We truly appreciate it, for sure. So let's talk about the actual assassination plot, or the
Yeah,
main one.
yeah.
The main one.
Well, do we going to get into the
Yes.
kidnapping plot first?
Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yeah, exactly.
You would have thought I read your notes.
You never know. So Booth's original mission, as you just said, and this was defined by his Southern handlers, was to kidnap
Right.
Lincoln. And the idea, you mentioned the soldiers' home. I read there was a summer residence, that was outside. It was like 3 miles outside of Washington, and Lincoln would ride out there sometimes by himself, just to
Right.
to kind of get away. And Booth apparently tried and failed twice to capture him or kidnap him along this route out to the soldiers' home. And he had actually Booth had actually funded, there was money, from the
Right.
Confederate
Right.
powers that be. Jefferson Davis actually had sent money to Montreal, like $1 million in
Wow.
gold the year
Wow.
before, for like
Ton of money.
plots. It was a lot of money, and not like real gold, not.
Yeah.
Confederate,
Worthless Confederate money.
exactly, and so anyway, so the
Interesting side note. With that earlier assassination attempt on Lincoln, where his hat was shot off his head, was speculation that that was John Wilkes Booth,
oh,
and
sure. Had to
if he had
oh,
set up along that route and attempted to kidnap Lincoln on his way to the soldiers' home, maybe those two things line up. Maybe
yeah, yeah, except the only thing I'm gonna push back on that is when, we said the original plan was for kidnapping,
yeah,
but then it changed
yeah.
to murder, assassination after, and I'm gonna talk about that for
After right. So he
so
wouldn't have wanted to assassinate him in August of
it
1864
was
because
not part of his mission,
in
or
the
not he wasn't authorized to do it by
in
the
the, in the mission was it was propelled by prisoner exchanges.
is that right?
Yes, Lincoln had refused to exchange prisoners with the South over the refusal to recognize black soldiers.
Interesting,
The South would not recognize black soldiers and would not exchange them, and Lincoln said no more prisoner exchanges.
interesting.
And so John Wilkes Booth was trying to force, or the Confederacy was trying to force the Union's hand
Yeah,
by taking. It was just a blackmail
right.
plot.
And I think General Grant, and I don't know if it was Grant or Sherman, I think it was Grant, was also like, "Look, the South has limited, soldiers, limited,
Right,
like,
right.
manpower. We got all the manpower in the world,
Yeah. Do not exchange.
so
Do not
there's
let.
no reason,
That's a good point.
strategically to do so as well." So it might have been both of those
It's a
things
great
for
point.
sure. Well, thank you. From other reading, but I appreciate it. I always take a compliment from my co-host Thornton Kennedy when I can get it. But as you mentioned at the outset, Richmond is gone.
Yep.
It's fallen, and the Confederate leadership is on the run. That would make a great episode, by the
Yeah.
way.
In the
Also,
future, for sure.
in the episode, not right now, future episode, Jefferson Davis later be captured in Fitzgerald, Georgia. It's kind of interesting.
There's your Georgia connection.
You can visit the capture site. And so there's no one to offer guidance to Booth or the other secret agents of the Confederacy. There are at least four groups apparently conspiring at this time to harm the president. There are two that are plotting to kidnap him. There's one that's trying to smuggle dress shirts infected with
Wha-
yellow fever
Wow.
into his like dresser and that kind of thing. I think that we can pull in our prior episode, and that if they're trying to send shirts with yellow fever, obviously that doesn't work. You can't have yellow fever without mosquitoes, right? But they didn't know mosquito
They
theory
didn't know.
at
Yeah.
that point. So anyway, so they're trying to do that. There's one trying to blow up another group trying to blow up the White House, but the Confederate government had strict rules. They were going to allow him to capture Lincoln, but not kill him.
Right.
There was no black flag warfare. That's a term that they used of you know no absolute. I mean, later the Civil War people would say, well, gosh, that maybe that's what Sherman did.
Right.
But no black flag warfare. Um, and with the Confederacy gone, Booth decides, okay, the prohibition against black flag warfare no longer applies. And so I guess the point being is that I believe, and I think most historians believe, that after the kidnapping plot was shelved,
Right.
the decision to assassinate Lincoln was Booth's alone. Would you
I'd
agree
agree with
with that?
I'd agree. And then I think you're going to make this point when Lincoln finally does formally address crowds. Booth says some menacing things then and there, indicating that he wanted the president dead, and that was not part of any. His co-conspirators were a little surprised
They were,
that it changed.
and one of them wanted out,
And
which we'll
we'll get to that in our next episode. This has been a fantastic run through part of those days leading up to this and those moments
I think you got to know the backstory for
in
sure.
Lincoln's knowledge, his understanding that his life was at risk, but
Yeah.
the need to put forward this brave
Right?
face, which ultimately costs him his life.
Indeed, indeed, it does.
Well, join us next time for History for Cocktail Parties. Like, subscribe, and please comment. Comments are the life's blood of podcasts, and we appreciate it.
Appreciate it. This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Otley.